PalWorld is down bad, okay? We can see this down from the peak at about 400,000 players, and there are a lot of issues plaguing the game right now, which I'm going to detail in this video. However, you should know that not all hope is lost. There is so many things PalWorld could do to really bring it back and reinvigorate the entire hype cycle all over again. And I'm going to cover the current issues facing the game, if they're a big deal or not, and what PalWorld can do to rectify this in the near future. So the first thing we need to talk about is that PalWorld is down a bit from its peak, whereas it's currently sitting at about 400,000 peak concurrent players each day, whereas all-time peak was about 2 million. Now, 400,000 is nothing to snuff at. It's still one of the top most played games on Steam to this very day. It's probably right up there on the charts. So 400,000 is very, very good. The problem is that it's been trending down for the past month, and we don't know if that trend is going to continue. Ultimately, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter that much, and 400,000 is substantial, and even if it dropped to 50 to 100k, that would still be really, really good, even compared to its initial launch cycle. So what are the current issues that could cause that to go even lower than 100,000 players? And that's quite simple. There is an increased amount of hackers and cheaters in the public PalWorld servers. They can even remove your progress on a world. So say you jump into a world and you start out on one of the public servers and you've built up your base, you spent like 20 hours building up your base, catching all your pals and everything. A cheater can jump into that server, delete your account, wipe everything you have, steal all your pals, and pretty much boot you out of it permanently, meaning you're going to lose those 20 hours permanently, and there is nothing you can do about it. Now, you might be able to submit support tickets and things to PalWorld support in the Discord, but I really don't think that's going to help. This really is a major issue. We'll even look at some current examples of this. We see this instance from a person called twitch.tv/MrCafe, where even in this beta starting state, I was having a lot of fun until a hacker came online in the official server 94, and they were playing for almost 2 weeks, and this guy joined the guild out of the blue, kicked us all, killed us all, kicked us, and taken everything, destroyed all the bases and all that sort of stuff, and then modified the stats of the characters and banned them from the server. You cannot make this stuff up. Hackers are running rampant in the game, and even though the PalWorld devs are working on it, we're going to get that touch on that in just a moment, it is going to take a little while to fix, and people need to be aware of that, and they need to make sure that they're doing the best thing they possibly can to try and avoid some of these issues. Another instance we've got is from Reddit, in our PalWorld, from someone called Just for Fun 0007, where someone said that is a staggering amount of hackers for an early access game, and the cost of the servers is really, really high as well. So essentially, PalWorld is supposedly burning money since hackers are ruining all of their official servers. At the same time, they kill every player on the servers, remove PAL boxes and structures. A day 1 server has level 50 players somehow on flying mounts right above the first Mammoris field boss. This is from this person's personal experience across a few of those servers. So I don't know how many people are actually hacking this game right now, but it seems like it is relatively frequent, which is something to really be considering when we're going through these issues. So the core issue here is that PalWorld is a very small studio. It takes a lot of time for a studio like this to not only scale up their systems so they can handle but they have to handle an overwhelming amount of success. We just have to hope that this doesn't cause too much reputational damage to PalWorld as a whole, which could cause a significant decline in the player base and overall greatly impact the amount of players that return to PalWorld in the future. We saw similar things like this happen in No Man's Sky, where the game didn't live up to expectation and took a long time for them to renew their faith in the community and really gather that attention back up. So next up, we'll talk about the PalWorld team's response to all of this. First up, we've got a post on X from Bucky, who is a part of the PalWorld and Craftopia team, where they talk about how the comments regarding losing player base are silly. Okay, this is a natural part of the game cycle, and he also wishes everyone to go and play the games they enjoy and return to PalWorld if they feel like it. He really has no ill will towards any of those people talking out there about PalWorld's player base declining forever. Really, every single game that's launched on Steam in the past decade has had a declining player base in the first month or two of the game's release until it eventually finds a stable footing. He also mentions that PalWorld has a limited amount of things to do, and once people finishing doing that, it makes a lot of sense for them to move on to other things and return to PalWorld at a later date. He also says that this is very important. He says that PalWorld is not in a position to pump out large amounts of new content on a weekly basis. He is directly admitting that here. I know it's obvious to many to see because their team is quite small. They're quite more or less an indie startup studio. They're not in a position to pump out large amounts of new content, which is going to affect the longevity of the game. That being said, they've made so much money now, they can hopefully scale up the team quite quickly. Now, he also mentions that new content is coming, and he refers to something that he calls round 2 of PalWorld. What I expect this to be is some next level of PvP integration, more pals, and even maybe an expanded world environment story and all the rest of it. There's more coming to PalWorld. He's very excited to talk about it, and I think a lot of people are going to love the future for PalWorld. The other thing we should talk about is that a network developer from PalWorld actually weighs in on the Discord. His name is Chujo Hiroto. I hope they pronounced that okay. So he mentions that they're building a player list to help identify cheaters. It'll also help those joining in on random servers and things like that to see if they can see any trustworthy users and things like that. And they will also act against cheaters strictly in the future. I think this is very important. I think a lot of development studios take cheaters and hackers very lightly, and they don't put enough serious punishments on there. That being said, how do you really punish someone like this? You can ban them from the game, but then they make a second account. You can ban their IP, which helps, but I mean, VPNs are so easy to access nowadays that I don't really think that's possible. Or you can do some sort of KYC or know your customer to identify individuals and ban them. There are ways to work around that, but that would be somewhat powerful. At the same time, it could make the game really unplayable for the more casual audience anyways. So probably not the best decision there. That being said, they haven't really mentioned how they're going to be dealing with this, except that they plan on introducing an external anti-cheat system. Now, I have my own problems with anti-cheat systems being installed on people's PCs. Really, it comes down to which anti-cheat system you want to use. Most of them have really dodgy setups that really give people full access to your computer if they so wish. And I'm hoping they use something with a really good reputation and a really good setup, so that it doesn't turn anyone off to the game, as a lot of people don't like installing random other pieces of software into their computer that install and open on startup. It can be quite frustrating, including to people like myself. Now, what should you do now that you have all this information? So I personally recommend getting off public servers as soon as possible. I know many of you have probably got countless hours logged there. If you can, turn them to private or whatever you need to do. Otherwise, get off them, start a new world. I don't care. It's really dangerous to be on them right now. You could lose your progress at any time. You might as well not waste extra time that could be wiped in the future. And here are two things that could fix PalWorld and bring it back in full force, guaranteed. I really do think that these two things, if they were incorporated, either one of them, would make PalWorld the greatest game of all time again. It's never really not become that, but I still think it could come back in a really big way. Firstly, any sort of competitive scene could revive PalWorld really, really fast. It's the same reason Pokemon sticks around for long periods of time after a new title is released. On that note, a battling system similar to boss fights would also suffice, where say you're coming up against Grizz and you're running around the arena, shooting them up, throwing out all your different pals. Imagine two players doing that against each other. They have 6 pals on their team. They're throwing them out in different orders, shooting at their opponent. I think that would be a really sick and awesome and fun game. The problem is that I don't think the pals are really balanced or anything like that. So I think there's going to be, everyone's going to be using the exact same pals, so it wouldn't be particularly competitive. On that, they could also introduce new worlds to explore. And this is huge in a few ways. Let me point that out. Firstly, it would give existing players and those who have been wronged a reason to return to the game and start fresh. Basically, people who hadn't played the game before would be enticed to jump in. People who have played before and completed the game would be enticed to start a new game over. And those that have gotten wrecked by hackers would be enticed to jump back in and start brand new on a brand new world. Obviously, this is useless without preventative measures already in place to take out the hackers and prevent them from ruining the experience for everyone.